All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to BenThere. It's a treat to have you. Thank you for joining us. No matter where you're watching us from, I truly and deeply, sincerely appreciate everybody who's been connected to this show. Don't forget, if you are joining us from the YouTube channel BenThere, please make sure you subscribe. That way you can get notifications as to when we're on. But that said, I just want to kind of get right into this interview. It's going to be a good one. But the show is designed to be a break from the norm right now. And it offers a sense of unity and equality and hopefully Zen, a little bit of Zen. We're going to talk about that later. But during this difficult time that we're living in, the show is about people from all walks of life. I am definitely included in that. So I just want to make sure people understand that this is a show about people from all walks of life. It's a show about TCKs, third culture kids, but like I said, and I've always said, it's not always going to be third culture kids, but the primary focus is of TCKs. So I want to get right into this one. This is going to be a fun one. This isn't a better or worse type of thing. TCKs, people that grew up outside our passport countries, it doesn't mean we're better, it doesn't mean we're worse, but in these kind of trying times right now, it's kind of a relief, and that's what the show's about. It's just about people sharing their stories and people accepting people for who they are. That's what we need right now. So I hope I make that a point, and we're going to move on right now. And I want to make sure we talk about our guest today. Our guest today, Miss Cristine Chen. I say that right? Hopefully, we'll get to just a second. But Cristine is an entrepreneur. She's a speaker and a writer. She is the co-founder of Generation Zen Kids, which is a training company that provides mindset programs for adults, children, schools, and businesses. She is passionate about helping growth-minded people and companies around the world thrive in uncertainty, which is definitely needed right now, Cristine. We'll get to that in just a second. She was previously a community organizer for Google Developers Group and the founder of the Asia-based tourism brand. She also served as the marketing strategist for the Taiwanese government and Taipei city government. She is just about done with her master's in psychology from Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. Cristine has been featured on TED Talks in, I can't pronounce the city actually, but in France. So I'll let you get to that in just a second, Cristine. But without further ado, I want to welcome Cristine Chen. Thanks for joining us on BenThere.
It's a pleasure to be here. 大家好. Hi, Ben.
谢谢. My Chinese is a little lost right now, but I'm trying to get it back. So, but 你好, 谢谢. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you for being here. So,
for hosting this.
Yeah, of course. No, this is awesome. What's kind of nice about you so far to kind of get everybody up to speed, and I'll go ahead and turn the Roman song off right now. But most of my guests so far have been people that I knew, people that I grew up with. You're a little bit different. You and I have talked before. You actually, the roles were reversed a little bit. You kind of asked me some questions back, I want to say February. Has it been that long? Yeah, okay. For a book you're about to publish. Is that right? Okay, so hold that thought, because I want to make sure people understand. You are somebody who not only is a TCK yourself, but you're here currently living in Los Angeles. The way I usually start all these interviews, no matter who you are, no matter if it's somebody that I know, and that's what I was alluding to, is the fact that you and I truly don't know each other that well, but it's kind of cool because we have that TCK connection together. So, and if you're a TCK, no matter where you're from, we're all connected, right? I think that's pretty safe to say. But what I like to do is start these interviews by having the guest kind of, I gave the breezy, easy version of yourself, but I'd like to maybe you just to talk about yourself the last 15 years, 20 years, whatever you've been up to, and kind of give the people watching, people listening, your entire backstory.
Right.
So it's all you right now. So Cristine, go ahead.
Let's go. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in this moment, whether you're watching it right now or you're tuning in after. Know that there's a reason that you're here watching this, and I hope you stay until the end, because we'll be sharing a lot of knowledge that may be helpful for you right now. So, background, I actually have a flag ready. I'm Taiwanese. This is for you, Ben.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
passport. My parents are both Taiwanese. However, this is where the TCK part comes in. I was raised in the Philippines, between the Philippines and Taiwan. I was sent out of the country at the age of 11 for a bit to Shanghai.
I also know Shanghai well, so yeah.
I know. And
Yeah,
imagine an 11-year-old girl, like it's just, yeah. So if any of you can relate, that's the third culture kid story. I've also studied in France, and now I'm here in the United States. So overall, I've been to 26 countries, journeyed. And to add to that, but still to add to that, there are still so many things that I want to learn. You know, just last week I learned so much about America. So even if traveling is a big part, I feel like there's always more to learn. I'm blabbering a bit here, but yeah, that's the big story.
Okay, good. That's a start, but I'm gonna dig a little deeper. First off, how many languages do you speak?
I do speak 5, and so yeah.
What are they?
You're just like ni hao.
No, ni hao. I speak taxi Chinese and barely speak English at this point. So like, let's yeah. So tell us what you speak.
So my first language is English. Taiwanese.
That was your first language? English was your first language?
Actually, 4 languages together. So okay. English, Taiwanese, Chinese Mandarin, Filipino, and then recently French. Not recently, over the past years. So learning, still not really good, but still there. So 5 languages. And I can speak street Spanish too. Because, yeah.
I barely speak street English at this point. So that's impressive. No, I respect that and appreciate that. Before we dive deep into this, I just want to make sure that the people watching know. So if I'm hearing you right, you were born in Taipei, right? We talked about that. Then how old were you when you moved to the Philippines?
I was young, 1-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't really know what I am. I'm a chameleon. I call myself that. And growing up, it's always been conflicting because whenever I would move back to, you speak street Spanish too?
Pablo, Pablo, Pablo and I actually worked in Shanghai together.
Yeah.
But he's also a TCK. He grew up the same way. He's originally from Brazil, but lived in the States and spent a lot of time in Asia. So he's also got a YouTube channel, which Pablo, feel free to publicize your. Oh no, different Pablo. Sorry, different Pablo. You know Pablo. I have 2 Pablos. That's why. Sorry, I looked at the first name and I got a little cocky there. So my apologies, Pablo. This Pablo, he and I have chatted a lot too. But yeah, he's a worldly man and he's going to be on the show at some point. We got to figure out when, but we're trying to connect our schedules. So sorry, Pablo. I looked and I saw your name, your first name only, and I've been trying. You get it because I'm trying to look at notes. I'm trying to look at you. I'm trying to do a whole lot of stuff. But Pablo, you are going to be on the show, brother. I promise. So anyway, back to this. So you were born in Taipei. You moved to, was it Manila? Where in the Philippines were you? Okay.
And so I went to a Chinese school there, Filipino Chinese school.
Okay.
And so you know how it goes. Everyone's Chinese homework, they would pass it to me. And I would, because I'm Taiwanese. And the same way, all my Filipino homework, because I really suck at Tagalog, even though I can speak it, but I can't do like Jose Rizal levels. Jose Rizal is the national hero of the Philippines, like really deep. It's like Tolstoy in Tagalog. And that was our language. And so they would help me out with that. Yeah.
The only thing I know to say is it Tagalog, right? Is mabuhay, right? Mabuhay. There you go. That's hello?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Hello. The beautiful thing about the Philippines, I really feel Pinay already.
Okay.
Is it's so mixed, like English and Chinese is still there because of the Chinese community and Tagalog. So I feel like even though I just moved to the United States, I feel very connected because the Filipino culture is very much like the United States because it was colonized before.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. No, I've spent many a days in Manila when I was in Taipei as a teenager, and we would play against the international school Manila many times sports wise. So
Mm,
I mean, I haven't been there in 20 plus years, but I definitely know, well, I did know Manila fairly well. So I loved it there.
mm.
Such genuine people, genuine people. So
I can't.
yeah.
I think the warmth and even pursuing a field, the profession in this profession in psychology wouldn't
Mhm.
be possible if I didn't see and witness the heart of the Filipinos. And I think that is, I bring the heart of the Filipino with wherever I go, because they're the most genuine, selfless culture that I've ever been to. Yeah.
So what actually brought you to the Philippines? Obviously, was it your dad's work or what was
So
going on?
to add more third culture kid to this,
Mhm.
both my parents met while traveling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so our family business back home is in tourism. And
Okay.
so since I could even talk, I was already on the airplane flying to Thailand with my dad to look at things. Well, I can't really see it because I was a baby, but one
Mhm.
of my first memories was just in the airport. Yeah. You
I
have a
get
lot
that. That's
of
well, yeah. Sorry, my throat's a little dry right now. So, well, no, we're gonna kind of wrap back around all this stuff because I'm so fascinated by your story as I am with most TCKs and if not all TCKs. But the second question, aside from allowing my guests to kind of introduce themselves in more of a depth concept, but this one I had to kind of go back in my notes because I went and watched your TED talk and we're gonna again I've watched it a few times and we're gonna talk about that in just a second. But I always ask my guests where is home to them. But before you answer that, having went back and watched your TED talk, you actually made a lot of sense and it made me rethink this. But usually when I just ask where's home and a lot of them laugh and you get it because TCKs,
yeah,
we don't know where home is, right?
right.
Yeah, we're homeless, as I like to say. But you brought up a good point in your TED talk, and we're going to make sure we post the before we hang up and before we're finished with this. I want to make sure people know where to find that TED talk. I think my brother actually posted it right before we went on air. My brother's been great. He's TCK himself. He's based in New Jersey now. He's in New York for a long time, but he's intrigued by all this and he's loving every minute of it. He was my last guest last week, so I think
Mm,
he actually posted your TED talk on my Facebook site. So, but we'll
awesome.
get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. But usually I just keep it simple and say where's home, and people laugh and then they struggle and then they think and then they talk. We talk about it. But you brought up a good point in your TED talk, and that's why I want to kind of change the question just a pinch.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable saying where's home, go for it. But if not, I'm going to kind of take a book or a page out of your book, your TED Talk book, and ask you, where do you feel at home?
Mm.
Instead of saying where's home. So I thought that was intriguing. So go ahead and answer that question or both questions, if you will. So
You know what? I think, okay, the question where is home and what feels at home and where it feels like home, I found the answer when I stopped asking and started feeling.
I like that.
It took a lot of time. I was like, I need to answer this, because every time you go to the airport, you have to fill out the form. Like, where are you from? And I have like 10 different addresses. I can't really, you know that, right? Your phone number's
Yeah.
all different. Like, it's different. Where is home? Of course, you're forced every single day to answer where is home. And even that question, where does it feel at home? And over the years, I told myself, and I think I've found the answer by not asking, and that is, it feels at home when my body feels safe. And that feeling has no words. The more you force it and say, oh, this is home, Taiwan is home, whatever is home, that's forcing it. But your body knows it energetically. So every TCK out there who's struggling to answer where is home, because it's an important question, I would highly encourage that you join me and ask your body, like, this is really home. And what does home feel? It feels like you don't have to run. It feels understood. Your body feels relaxed.
Mhm.
Your body feels this is the right place. Now, there is the beautiful thing about this question, where does it feel at home, is it's transient. You can
Yeah.
have different answer every single day. And so to answer that question, I have no answer. And it changes all the time. But really, I've learned to trust my body, because really that question is asking, where do you feel secure enough to work? I think that's why we ask ourselves that, right? Because when your body is panicking, you can't work, you can't function, you can't do your daily job because you're anxious. And so sometimes we ask ourselves, where do I feel safe? That question in itself is asking, where can I function enough and feel safe enough that I can work properly? And so that all starts in the body. I hope that made sense.
No, it totally makes sense. So
Yeah.
am I safe in assuming right now you feel pretty relaxed in LA, Los
Yeah.
Angeles?
And I
Okay.
can share with you the journey. Just
Yeah,
a
please.
story.
Please do.
So
Yeah. Because
I'm
I
not,
was actually going to ask you that. How'd you end up in LA? So
yeah. Okay, that's a long story. I'll share it in a bit. But
we
more
all
so,
have, we've got long stories. We have nowhere to be. So let's go for it. Like,
I love that. We're BenThere, right? We're
yeah.
here. We're
Yeah.
B. Yeah. Okay, anyway. All right. So last week I was just contemplating, where is home? That question, where does it feel at home? Because LA was rioting and I didn't feel safe. I was like, my first instinct was to go to the LAX and just fly off.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the negative part of being a TCK, is your coping mechanism is flying. It's like, okay, I don't like this place, I'm leaving. Because you always had options, which is a privilege that I have to address. But it's also a con, because you don't develop the resilience to sit in one place and just face the problem. So anyway, last week I was like, should I go back to Taipei, stay in the United States, even go to Manila? And then my friend calmed me down. She said, look, you have decided this is your home. It's a decision. And you feel happy here, all your friends here, energetically, you like it here when it's safe. So stick with it. And so LA is home now. Yeah.
How long have you been in LA?
Almost 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Still a short time, but I don't see myself leaving. Yeah.
No, it's good. And we're going to talk about your work in just a little bit. But so were you, just so I'm understanding you right, I think I started talking about this and I probably broke concentration here, but you were born in Taipei, lived in the Philippines, and then did you come to the States, or where you were kind of were you back in Taiwan for a little while too, right?
Back and forth, yes. And I worked
Okay.
in Taiwan. That's a whole other story, going back to Taiwan and working there. Oh my goodness.
Save that story for the acclamation question in just a little bit then. So that's good. So I got my buddy. I hope you understand. Not everybody that watches this are TCKs, and my buddy is writing in. This will make no sense to you, but I'm going to give him a little bit of publicity here. So, Jason, why does Woody do Facebook and not text? I have no idea. It's another friend of ours that doesn't like to text so much. So, but we'll go back to Paulo for that. There's a little pub for Jason guys are there. So, but I want to talk about the positives and negatives of growing up internationally. Obviously, you were, born in Taipei, you lived in Manila, you're in the States now. But what do you, in terms of those that are listening that either are currently doing this or about to do this with their own families, if you could talk for a little bit about the positives and negatives about growing up internationally and that sense of belonging. One thing also I took out of your TED talk is you really, which I loved because I've talked about this myself, and I don't think it's cocky in saying this, but I do think TCKs we have this uncanny ability to maybe bridge cultures, right? Without even realizing we're doing it. I think it's just the product of being put in that situation and growing up in that situation. But if you could talk about the positives and negatives, and then that just sense of belonging side, and then that bridging culture side too that you spoke of in your TED talk.
The positive side is this conversation, Ben, like being able to connect with you. I feel that you're right. We need to connect with people who are in a way different from us. Why? Because if we don't do that, we can't survive. So a lot of times you go to a country where you can't speak the language, you don't know what people are going through, and really what will help you survive, and at least what helped for me, is that sense of curiosity, which is a positive side of being a TCK. Endless sense of curiosity. One, it's our way of learning, and number two, it's coping mechanism too, and survival mechanism. Curiosity allows us to see, is this place safe? Right? If I'm an American and I'm in Taipei, if I enter Taiwan with arrogance and not asking what's up here, I can get bullied and kicked out, right? So it's that sensitivity, which is the positive side. We develop that knack for humans, that knack for asking questions. Another positive side is, oh my goodness. Okay, this is a bit more practical, but the food at home.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The way I cook is not like, okay, this is just Taiwanese, this is just Filipino. It's a mix. And so I think anyone who has a TCK as a wife or husband is lucky because your food is like messed up and mixed. Right? Your kids will grow up with different cultures. That's just part of it. That's the positive side. And if you're a parent and you're raising a TCK, oh, your kid is going to be a foodie. Definitely. That's amazing. All right. Another positive side is practical wise, career wise, you develop an abundance mentality. I think that is what I experienced because I know if I fail, let's say in Taiwan, in a way like I don't get recognition there, I can always go to another place. So there's abundance. Oh, you want a plate of that? Let's go, Pablo.
Whatever you're cooking, yeah, he wants a plate of it. So I hear you, Paulo.
I was just cooking Filipino sinangag with it's like garlic rice, like Taiwanese tofu, like just mixed together. Yeah, so that's the positive side. A lot human related. Anything people skills, you develop that. The negative side is I mentioned it earlier, is the coping mechanism. When we are not aware, we may bring the coping mechanism into our relationships. So I'll give you an example, Ben. Growing up, I always felt like I had to leave. Like this is not permanent. I always need to go somewhere else. Or my mom or dad will be like, okay, we're leaving tomorrow to this place. And what that creates is in romantic relationships, when you're dating, you kind of feel like, oh my God, is my partner going to say we're leaving? I'm leaving you? Are we? Yeah, it's that kind. And I don't know if this is for all TCKs, but at least with a lot of the people I've talked to and interviewed, that's a major problem. Staying committed and believing that long-term commitment is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say that because as soon as you started talking about that, I started thinking back to childhood, and then I was fortunate enough where I was able to go back overseas as an adult and work in Shanghai for a little bit. Yeah, and I was single back then, and it was tough and whatnot. But the one, and maybe you can back me up on this, or maybe you don't agree with this at all, and that's what makes the show so cool. Is I want definitely interaction, but the one constant about being a TCK, whether you're elementary school level, whether you're high school level, whether you're an adult going back overseas, the one true constant that we always have is that saying goodbye, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness, I felt that. That.
Yeah, and like I said, I was single my first year, and then by the second year I was in Shanghai, I was pretty much committed to my now wife back home, but it's just that concept is always saying goodbye, and you never really know what relationships are going to stay intact or which ones they're here and now and in the moment. And that's not bad. As those of us that can attest to that have grown up overseas or even spent time overseas, living overseas.
Right.
That's the one true concept. And whether you're a kid or an adult or all that, saying goodbye is probably the constant in a horribly beautiful way, right? Is that a right expression? I don't know, but
horribly beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, because we have so many friends from so many places, and these days, luckily, I mean, when I was growing up, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no email. I'm old. I've established that. Yeah, I've established that a couple of times on the show, but nowadays it's a little bit easier to stay in touch. But yeah, it's that constant saying goodbye is always kind of the killer there. So
definitely. And so when you are going to counsel TCKs, one thing that comes up always is grief.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? What's your advice to that then?
The way to deal with grief. So grief has been constant in my life too. And I've learned over the ways. I tried to cope with it, but I learned that coping is not the right word. I dealt with it by facing it. It's like surfing. The waves are grief. You are the surfer. You ride the grief. you swim with the grief. That's the way through it.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's powerful and yet realistic too, because that's a good analogy. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And
and I want to share, like, saying goodbye and grief. We can't sugarcoat that and tell our kids in the future, right? Like, there's no goodbye. Only see you tomorrow. Look, everyone says, but there is goodbye, right? We have to deal with it. There is goodbye. And so I think moving forward, how we can continue helping TCKs is reframing grief, reframing how we manage grief, instead of brushing it away. It's being able to face it and manage the difficult emotions while being able to live a life and not let it like ruin you. Yeah. And that's
go ahead.
Yeah. And so what helped me in my journey is a concept in Zen Buddhism, which is nothing is really gone. Nothing is really gone. Even though we say goodbye to, let's say today, maybe you're in the US and you have to go to Asia, that goodbye is not really goodbye because the person is still alive. And even if the person is gone, he's still in your mind. So that person is never really gone. It's your attachment to what could have been, but that person is just there. And so reframing it that way, like saying, okay, it hurts, it's painful, but I also know that the person is still there. Yeah.
No, I like that because, I mean, like I said, when I was growing up specifically, and we're going to talk about Acclamation in just a second, but there was never, this is the part of being a TCK that's never discussed or wasn't discussed when I was growing up. There was no template. There was no, I got to be honest with you. Like, I mean, obviously people came and went through. I mean, there were usually the majority of the people, I'd say a good 3/4 of the people that I graduated high school from. We went to middle school together, and we were lucky enough to finish at Taipei American School together. But there were a ton of those people too. I mean, that didn't stay with us, and you lost touch, and there was no Facebook. I've already alluded to that, or email, but there was no template, right? There was no direction. Nobody talked about it. It was just kind of like this well-known yet unkept secret. Nobody was ever pushing us towards like, this is, I got to be honest with, for all the glories and the greatness of being a TCK and seeing the world, there's this little dark secret that nobody really talks about. And that's the concept of saying goodbye. You think you're going to say goodbye at the age you're at, you're going to see them again, you see them again, and you don't. And that's tough. I mean, there's people luckily through Facebook and email and whatnot, I've reconnected with people I haven't seen in person in 30 plus years.
Wow.
Which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But it is that little dark secret. I hope it's not that exact same way now to the current TCKs that are out there. But I love what you said. I mean, it's a situation. It's never really goodbye now. And I think that's awesome through technology specifically, but it's never really goodbye. And I love that, the way you said that.
I'll add to that two things. One is, it's never really goodbye, but we still have to accept the goodbye. It's contrasting, but that's truth. Grieving is, you have to accept that it hurts, but also know that the person is still there. So holding those two concepts together. And another is for the non-TCKs listening, I want you to imagine this so you can empathize on how that feels like. Imagine that every single week, the woman or the man you love the most breaks your heart and leaves you. And it happens every single week or every single month. You meet someone new and then that person leaves. You meet someone, it's like going on a Tinder spree, right? It's like on online dating. That's how a TCK feels. Every single month, oh my God, yes, this person is the one. And then boom, the person's gone. That's how we feel with countries, with cities, with people. And it's a constant in our life. And yeah, up until we decide to settle down.
Yeah. With that said, do you find it hard to really truly allow yourself to get close to people?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah. And so, because to be close to people requires hurt, requires vulnerability. And I wasn't ready for that. But over the years, I learned that to be human, you have to, and to love, you have to be open to getting close to people. Yeah.
No, that's good, because I definitely know it's kind of split right down the middle, because I know TCKs that put up a wall. I mean, I did that for a long time, especially when I came back to the States more so. But there's a lot of people that put up walls because they don't want to feel that pain. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to. They know it's out there, and they know that chance of saying goodbye is real, and they rather just block it off, right? So
we do weird
I mean, there's
things to not be committed. We do weird things. We act like someone who we are not because we're afraid to get attached. We distance ourselves even before the fact that we're leaving is like really a fact. And so being aware of that allows you to be close. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's usually no plan. I mean, sometimes as kids, even as adults, I mean, I've known adults that taught in the same place for many years, and then one day they just like, enough, and I'm gone. But there's no set plan a lot of times. I mean, I grew up the son of a business international business guy, and my dad was with McDonald's. I talked about this off camera before we started, but when you get that call, when you find out you're moving overseas, there's no exact number of years. I mean, you have an initial contract that could be extended, that could be shortened. It doesn't matter. So, I mean, that's why it's like always playing with, time's ticking the second you land, right? Because nobody sincerely knows how long they're truly going to be there, whether there's a contract or not. Nobody truly knows the timetable and the time factor.
So it's like you took a master's in uncertainty since your father brought you from the U.S. to Taipei.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you just kind of grow up that way, and that's what I'm getting at. Like when I was 10 years old, my best friend in Hong Kong, Andrew Quist, he and I have reconnected, especially the last couple of years. But realistically, when I was 9, when we were in 4th grade together, I thought this was it. I'm going to be this way. This is how life is going to be forever. Right. And then a year and a half later, I'm sitting in Taipei in Taiwan and not knowing a soul, and here we go again. It's that. And then
again. Oh my.
Yeah, and you try to keep those connections, and then yet knowing full well that you're going to have to make new friends and new relationships and things like that, only to maybe have someone break your heart, as you said, or like leave. And even as a kid, whether it was just a friendship or a relationship in high school, your heart's going to get broken. But do the positives outweigh the negatives? Right. I say yes. Right. So
yeah, it's the feeling of children who have been through divorce, just like my parents. It's the feeling of people who have been struck by calamities, like in Japan, where they don't know when their house will be gone. Is that the feeling of fear, uncertainty, and grief that is common among TCKs, but also common among a lot of different populations.
Yeah, I think it makes you grow up real fast too.
100%. We call that parentified.
I've never heard that. That's awesome. Like parentified.
Yeah, parentified. It's like kids like you and me, where we have to act like the mom or the dad at like 9 years old. Like you have to be strong at 9 years old or 10 years old. Yeah. And if we're not careful, we will subject the same rigidity to our children. And so that's why I believe psychology therapy is so powerful, because when you see that, no, that's your childhood, don't bring that pain to your kids. When you see that, you can create change. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's a great advice. Wow, you're making me think right now on the spot. So I appreciate that. So stuff that I haven't thought about. So that's good. So well, the one thing you talked about, again, I keep going back to your TED Talk, but the one thing that you mentioned and I loved, and it's kind of alluding into my next question, the acclimation process. And before we get into the acclimation process, I want to make sure this is said. But one thing I truly, well, not one thing, many things, the concept of TCKs, when you're going through the experience, especially maybe in the summer times when you're going back to your passport country and whatnot, there's this huge sense of feeling alone, right? Like you're the only one going through this. No one in the world understands what you're going through. Right. This is how it is, blah, blah, blah. Right. And you really touched on that you're not alone. I mean, this is why I'm doing the show. I mean, like I said, from the beginning, it's not necessarily about TCKs. I will have guests on that aren't TCKs, but the majority of the people that are on the show have gone through what you went through, have gone through what I went through. And I want to make sure that people understand they're not alone. That's something I struggled with forever, because I thought, am I the only one feeling this way? And then the more we finally open up and talk about it, I'm not.
I think like BenThere.org, I'm looking at your logo now. What you're
Yeah.
doing is you are normalizing discomfort through the guests that you bring on, people like me and other stories. You're normalizing experiences, and that allows people who look at your videos in the future to feel less alone. So I love it. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. But that's the whole entire thing, because for so long I mean, do you have siblings?
I do. One little brother.
Oh, okay. Does he, how little is little? Is he going through all this right now, or?
He's in Manila.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like my brother and I, we didn't even talk about this. It's something like almost sometimes siblings don't even discuss until you finally sit down and have that chat. But like, it's a big deal, which brings me up to my acclamation question. I mean, this is the one question that I ask all my guests is, well, but you're a little bit different, because, and I'm really curious how you're going to answer this, because you don't just come from one background or two backgrounds. You actually, I mean, you've been in the States for a couple of years now, and yet I'm going to guess that you spent the majority of your life in Manila. Is that fair to say?
And also Taiwan, back and forth.
Okay. Right. And so, but you're actually by passport Taiwanese, right? So when I say, usually when I have someone on, I'm just saying like, how was your acclimation process from being overseas to the States? Because majority have been American or European or things like that. But you're a little bit different. Your struggle, how was it not only when you first came to the US a couple of years ago to live, but also when you go back to Asia? You go back to two places in Asia. And I would think those cultures are I've been to both, but those cultures are very different as well. So you have three acclimation processes. Here's a girl who was born in Taipei, lived in the Philippines majority of her life, and then came to the States. So you've actually got three acclimation processes. So going back to Manila, how is that acclimation process being stateside? And then even going back to Taipei nowadays, how's that acclimation process?
Imagine that you are Lady Gaga and you have to change outfits every time you fly. That's how I like
Awesome.
that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And for a while I was like, am I Lady Gaga with eggshells or Lady Gaga with the bacon on? But who am I? Like that's how I felt. And I think that kind of describes it. It's like if you're an actor, you're in theater arts, that's how you would feel it's the same feeling as how I feel. Every time I land back in Taiwan, I feel like I transform from this crazy person living in LA to like this meek grandchild who sits with her legs crossed, and like it's just Lady Gaga transformed. And it's honestly disorienting. Anyone who is in the arts, performance, like musicians, you would get this. You have a different persona on stage.
Yeah.
And at the TCK, that's how I feel. Like every time it's like, am I performing here? Who am I? And so, yeah, that's it.
Do you feel like you're performing in the States too?
No, I feel like me here. And that's that's the concept of home. My body feels I'm safe here. I don't have to act anymore. Like I don't have to act like, I sleep at 4 p.m. in my grandma's house in Taiwan. I'm not that person. And so being able to come here and just be free, I think, yeah.
So most of the time when you go, how often do you go back to Asia then? Do you mind?
I'll just talk about last year. I went like 4 times.
Okay. Do you usually go to the Philippines or do you go to Taipei or both or what?
It's funny, last year because I was in Taipei and I was flying to Manila and I forgot I needed a visa to enter the Philippines. So I got stuck in the border. And I told them, this is my home. My father's waiting for me outside. And they're like, no, you're flying back to Taiwan, ma'am. You don't have the Philippine passport. And that was just last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I think you touched on this in your intro, but did you go to an international school then in
Filipino Chinese school?
Okay. Okay. Because the only school I know, actually I know a couple. I know obviously International School Manila. We played against them many times. And then Faith Academy. Isn't that I know them fairly well too. So let's stick on that acclimation process then. When you go to, if I'm hearing you right, when you go overseas and you're in Asia, whether it's the Philippines or Taipei, Taiwan, when you come back to the States, do you know, this is a weird question to ask, because I guess I don't know necessarily how to ask this, but do you get homesick for
Gosh,
a
Ben.
place? Like what in your, I mean, I know what I feel when I feel homesick, but in terms of someone like you who's technically from Taipei, but grew up in the Philippines and yet lives in the States, where is your homesickness? Like where is that angled, I guess?
This question is so good. It hits the heart of what I've been struggling, because when I feel homesick, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think that maybe I don't have to go anywhere. That's my way of dealing with it now. But when I'm homesick, I usually miss the security. That's what I'm chasing for. And being a single woman here in the United States, and you know what happened last year, not last week, and everything, it's just scary. And you yearn. The homesickness is more of a yearning for an embrace from my father, saying that everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, that's home.
Do you get that? Do you talk to your parents a lot?
My dad. And my mom passed last year, so that's a
Oh, I'm
grief.
so sorry.
It's okay.
I feel that because my dad passed, wow, 9 years ago. So
I'm sorry. Grief, there's no deadline for it. But anyway, my mom inspires me. She's a TCK herself.
oh, really? Let's talk about her then. Do you mind?
I love talking about
Let's
her.
talk about it. Yeah, let's tell me her story.
Her name is Jenny. She's
Mhm.
tiny woman.
Yeah.
Fierce. She is self-made herself, and she is an adventurer. And one thing that she taught me that I bring with me everywhere I go is empathy. She said, when you don't know what's happening, like feel with the heart and just see what the other person needs. And so her risk-taking appetite too. So I think as a TCK, you make more risk. I haven't made that association yet, but I'm making a hypothesis. So she's an entrepreneur and she's not afraid of anything because she knows she can start again.
Yeah.
And that's the resilience of a TCK, because you have to rebuild your life again and again so many times you're not afraid anymore. And that goes into entrepreneurship, right? If you fail in this business, it's okay. I will start again. I'm confident I can do it. And yeah, that's my mom. That's what she taught me. Her resilience, her passion for helping people. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and she's right, because I think if you were to ask any TCK, it's that concept of reinventing yourself, right?
Yes.
We've done it so many times personally, and I'm sure you have too. It sounds like you have. So, and it's a blessing. I mean, we're not one to take, you know, we don't hear the word no very often. I mean, we hear it a lot, but we don't accept it, right? So we learn to reinvent yourself, and I think that's definitely a part of being a TCK as well. So we're not afraid to take chances. I mean, that's all we've known is kind of chaos, right? So I think that's a concept of being able to reinvent yourself. I mean, whether it's myself or my brother or, you know, people that I've known, you know, we talked about the one concept is always saying goodbye, but I think the other concept of being a TCK is, and the true concept is that we are able to reinvent ourselves. It's not just wanting to, it's the fact that we do.
Yes.
Right.
It's like when you step into, let's say you fly to Taiwan again today, you have to change your entire tone, move, even your body is different. That, by the way, body language, because you adapt to society. So if you look at Taiwan, the body language is more like humble, more reserved. In America, I noticed everyone's like so proud. Like you just become confident because you copy the people around you. And so you're right. You constantly reinvent, you constantly adapt. Yeah.
Yeah. And we get taught that at such a young age. I think that's just, it becomes part of your DNA. It's whether you're, you know, realizing it or not at the moment or in the moment, it's part of who you are. You just learn to adapt. And I think, again, here's one of those things that's like, it's horrifyingly beautiful, right? Like it's just what we do.
That should be your trademark. BenThere. Horrifyingly beautiful.
Horrifyingly beautiful. Yeah. I might scare some people off by that, but like there's truth to what I'm saying, but I don't want to scare anybody off. There's so many things you pick up by living in another country. And again, I said this from the get-go. It's not a matter about being better or worse. That's not what we're about. it's just who we are. Everybody's got a story, right? This just happens to be our story. Nobody asked for it, but that's the cards we were dealt, and you learn things and you move on. So, and that's kind of how I see things anyway. So, yeah. So let's move on. This may seem, hopefully this is an easy question to answer, but in terms of advice for TCK families, so in this world we're living in right now, I mean, a lot of people are moving overseas. Maybe some are overseas. Maybe a lot of adolescents are trying to figure out their ways. Luckily, they have this platform, or they have many platforms that you and I didn't have growing up. But what advice would you give TCK families right now?
Oh my goodness. It's the perfect time to talk about this because it's going to be a trend. With work going remote, families now have the option to live in the middle of nowhere and still have income because of the internet. And so we're going to see a big tide of TCKs coming. And so number one advice would be, oh my, there's so much. But number one is biologically make sure that everyone is acclimated when you're moving to a new place. If you're moving to a new place, let's say today even just from California, you're moving to New York, that is also TCK experience. You're like, oh my goodness, what world is this? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs start with physiology. How can you bring comfort food to your new place? That's a practical advice. Your body needs to feel safe. Exactly. It's like going to Taiwan and your favorite steak is not there. You'll cry. You'll be like, I want to go home. And so if you have kids especially, give them the food that they're used to and just slowly ease them into it. Start with food, right? And make sure that there's that familiarity there. Yeah, that's number one. Number two is understand that safety is a decision. You can feel safe anywhere if you decide to. Just sit with yourself and breathe and know that this is home now. There's no looking back. Feel safe here. Yeah. And number three is curiosity. This is not natural for humans. I know it's natural for you and me, Ben, but for a lot of people, curiosity is scary because it requires you to remove comfort and potentially be a new person. And that's scary. It's a risk. And if you're a TCK, you're moving to a new place, curiosity will help you because without curiosity, you'll end. It's like being in California, but you can't speak English. I know there's people like that. We don't want to be like that, right? We want to integrate. So curiosity, if you're afraid you can't speak the language, it's okay. Humility, ask questions. One of my best friends here in the United States, your brother.
Yeah, there he is.
Founder, her name is Yukari, and I really, really admire her because she committed to learning English, and she's always curious about America. And I think for every family out there, don't worry if you don't know the place. If you're moving to a new place, a new city, as long as you have the capability to ask questions, you'll be fine.
Yeah. You'll be fine. You mentioned that the language has always been the biggest, I think, fear of people. And even I was in Shanghai for a couple of years, and
it's hard.
When I got back to the States, people were like, "But did you speak Chinese?" I'm like, "Yeah, enough. Yi dian right there." But you hit it on the head. It's a concept of you almost have to submerge yourself in the culture, and as terrified as people can be, and it's scary. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything's rainbows and unicorns, right? Because it's definitely, no matter if you're 30 plus or you're a teenager, it's a scary transition. Let's not sugarcoat it, right? But the more you kind of back yourself into a corner, and the more you kind of fight it, I think that only makes it worse. I mean, it's not easy to just submerge yourself and go with the flow and be willing to accept your new surroundings. But I think that's something that you truly have to kind of push yourself to do in order to get over that hump, right? And to get past those walls. And I think that's a lesson that's learned hard for many people, because it was for me. Even when I went back as an adult, I didn't fight it, but I just thought I was fine. Everything was cool. And then I'd catch myself going, something's missing. And it wasn't people, because people were welcoming. I think that's one thing you and I can agree on. Believe it or not, people are more welcoming than you think.
Yeah.
It's you that puts up walls. Yeah. It's I was putting up the wall, not the other people. I was being welcome left and right, but I was like, I'll get there when I'm ready.
Right.
Right. And so I think, and I did that maybe as a kid too. I just didn't know the difference. But as a kid, as long as there were other kids my age, I didn't care where they were from and they wanted to play. Well, let's play. Let's go. So maybe sometimes the kids have an easier adjustment than the adults. But having said that, I think you can relate to this. Whether you've got kids or what or not, they are watching every little thing you do. Yeah. How you act, how you interact is how they're going to be. How your transition is how theirs is going to be.
Yes.
How you acclimate is how every little thing you do, they're watching.
Yeah.
You know, kids watch. They're not dumb. You know, and that's 15 years of teaching, you know, international schools and whatnot. I mean, kids
know it. Yeah.
Yeah, they truly shadow every little move parents make. And luckily for my brother and I, my parents were so welcoming. They're like, you don't have to like it, but you have to try it.
I love that.
You know, and so I give a lot of props to my parents for that. And I know a lot of other parents did the same thing, but truly submerging yourself into the culture, I think, is a huge thing. If you allow yourself to drop that guard, you're not only you, but your family is going to be better off for it. So yeah, I mean,
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking a little too much, so I just get so caught up in this. Yeah, I love it. So
it adds to it, and you brought so much great insights.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Let's talk about traveling in general then. Let's as TCKs, most of us tend to have the travel bug, right?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
What about you? You still have it? You think why do you think us TCKs have that travel bug?
First of all, if you check my Instagram, there's the Discover feed, right? I have a bunch of pictures of Iceland, and it's just like random travel pictures because I do miss it.
Especially right now. Yeah,
especially right now. Why? I think it's because we lack stimulus. We constantly crave stimulus. As TCKs, we're used to change, risk, chaos. And when it's peaceful, you start feeling like it's weird. And traveling is the best way to disrupt reality.
Do you find yourself getting antsy after 3 or 4 years living somewhere?
3 to 4 months.
Months? Oh, you beat me? Okay. That worked.
I timed it, to be honest with you. 3 months. It's like, okay, let's go. And so this forced me to sit here and not move anywhere. Yeah. Because I need to 3 months and fly to Taipei and then Manila and then Taipei but now it's like,
That's so funny. Why do you think that is with us TCKs? Like, why do we just have that itch? Why can't we just be constant somewhere?
My God. I do think it's historical too. We're used to it. We're creatures of habit. It's like, why do we brush our teeth at night? The same for TCK. Movement is brushing teeth. Yeah. Change is brushing teeth. And when you're told one day you can't brush your teeth, you're itchy. So you start looking at Instagram pictures of toothbrushes. It's the same concept. Yeah. For travel, I do miss it.
I've never thought of it as a toothbrush, but that's a great analogy. That's fantastic. I've never thought of it that way. Is there some place that you still earn to go to, like yearn to go to, in terms of maybe some place you haven't been that you'd like to go?
Oh my goodness.
Or places. Let's put an S on the end and make it plural.
Latin America. I've never been.
Where? I'm sorry.
South America.
South America. Yeah. Ironically, neither have I. I've been all over the world, but never been to like Mexico never been to South America.
Goodness. You're in for a treat. I heard it's really beautiful. Yeah, I want to go there and see it because the Philippines is so close to the culture there. And I'm a big foodie, and they have amazing food there. Definitely that's the next spot.
Is there one country specifically that you like to get to, or?
One of my good friends, Don, he lives in Ecuador, and so I would love to visit Ecuador. Also Brazil.
Nice. Yeah, don't go to Brazil just yet because they have a little bit of a corona issue. So
I know.
Yeah, who doesn't? I guess right now. So
Taipei.
Taipei, that's true, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well played, Taipei. I like it. So we're gonna switch gears now. We're almost at the hour mark, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time to kind of dig deep into you as a person and a professional and all that stuff. So I alluded to the fact that you're about done with your master's in psychology from Pepperdine, right? Pepperdine University. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a huge accomplishment. And Pepperdine's a great school. So
thank you.
Well done. You're the co-founder of Generation Zen Kids.
Ben.
If you don't mind taking some time and just explain what that is exactly, the Generation Zen Kids.
So we're a training company, and we train adults, children, and businesses on answering just one simple question: how do I thrive amidst uncertainty? So that's the main problem we solve. And we created a framework. It's a 5-pillar framework where if you master the 5 skill sets, it will allow you to not break down when there's chaos. And so that's what we're bringing in, and we're launching soon. I'm super excited. Yeah.
Do you mind giving us a little bit of preview, maybe the 5, or is that something that you want people to kind of, okay, go right ahead.
More than happy, because this will really help. So self-awareness, emotional regulation, communication skills. Number 4, productivity. How do you manage your attention and time when everything around you is breaking down? And number 5 is existential. Why do you wake up? We help people answer that. Why do you go to work? Why do you thrive? What's the purpose? And so when you answer all 5 of these, it builds resilience in yourself to move forward.
Is that something specifically for TCKs, or is that something for people in general?
It's for people who want to thrive in uncertainty. It's for the risk takers. It's for the growth-oriented people who want to be their best selves, but they are afraid because of the uncertainty, right? It's like getting from point A to point B. Let's say you're someone who wants to launch a business. Well, what's between you and the business is uncertainty. So using the 5 pillars, it will allow you to have the fortitude and resilience to move from A to B, because entrepreneurship, launching anything is scary. But a big inspiration for the 5 pillars is definitely my TCK upbringing, because we talked about it, right? Uncertainty is the backdrop of our lives, and yeah.
Uncertainty is another one of those constants, right? With us TCKs, yeah. Do you find yourself, is it marketed towards TCK? So it's marketed towards everybody, right? Is that what you said?
Entrepreneurs,
okay,
parent entrepreneurs, TCKs, and companies who are like at the forefront, who are willing to change. We're starting there.
No, that's huge.
Run or something like, just like not over 70 years old run company. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Especially in these times that we live in, I think that'd be huge. I mean, that's great. And I want to make sure that we get that. What's the website right now? Do you mind telling me so I can type it up?
But our YouTube, I think it's in your description, that one.
Okay.
We haven't launched, but this is a preview for everyone. The YouTube will post a lot of content there.
No, that's great. So, and I'll make sure to post this as well. I think I did post it a little bit on the, and okay. So, so you're about to have a master's of psychology from Pepperdine. Let's take a step back to kind of go forward. With the world as it is today, I mean, these are dark times, coronavirus complications, right? The racial tension, the protests, this discrimination, just the evil in the world. And it's so sad for me. I mean, I don't claim to be all that. I don't claim to be better or worse than anybody, but it is frustrating to see the divide right now. Not just in the States, but globally. And I try not to get too political on the show. It's not about that. I just was raised to treat everybody for who they are, not what, for what they look like. And that's, again, it's not a matter of me being better or worse, or, saying I had, perfect parents and whatnot, because there's a lot of people like me and a lot of people like you. And I think it's the ability to recognize difference.
Right.
A lot of that stems from being a TCK. A lot of that, I grew up the minority, and now I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what it's like to be African American in the United States. That's totally not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I understand what it's like to be the minority, right? So I want to make sure that's clear. But having said that, this is an interesting question, because it's one that's been asked, that I actually asked someone like you this. Is it a safe time to be a TCK?
Is it a safe time?
Yeah.
Wow, I've never been asked this. Is it a safe time to be a TCK?
And I asked that because when I was, again, I'm old, right? So 1983,
Mentally
world was
very young.
mentally, yeah. Like I like to think I have a little bit of youngin to me, but yeah. So, when I was 1983, I was 7, 8 years old and about to move to Hong Kong. My biggest worry was that, do I have to use chopsticks or a fork? I didn't have to think about coronavirus. I didn't have to think about, right? I didn't have to think about all that. So, but it's a different world, and I've taught a long time, and I can't imagine sitting in front of a classroom right now explaining to kids that everything's okay when it's not. And that's why I want to ask you that. Is it a safe time to be a TCK? Because I pride myself in being a TCK. I love TCKs, and there's TCKs all over the globe right now, but is it a safe time to be a TCK?
My gosh.
I told you I was going to get deep a little bit. Sorry.
This is, yeah. I'm also thinking because you're a teacher and then you have to tell all of these kids. That just breaks my heart, what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
It's not just me. It's global. I mean, there's plenty of way better teachers than myself that kind of can bring this up in classrooms and probably make it a better, calmer conversation. But kids aren't dumb. Like we talked about this earlier. Kids want to know. They look at every little thing adults are doing, especially teachers and parents and whatnot. So that's why I'm asking you.
Right.
So
okay, I'll go back to the question then. Is it safe to be a third culture kid now? Physically, no, and it's not even possible to be one. But I do believe that third culture kid is a mindset more than it's a lifestyle, but it's more a mindset. And when you can approach the situation from a third culture kid curiosity mindset, it will benefit you 100% because you can see perspectives. And that's very powerful. Don't ever lose that. It doesn't mean that you're stuck in Japan. You have to be Japanese. No, read about news in France. Read about news in the United States. Be educated, right? And so, yes and no to that question.
Because I truly, and I think you'll back me up on this, not being able to travel or not, that kills people like you and I, right? Like it's just, even the fact that I'm not saying I have a ticket and I was supposed to go somewhere, but just the concept of the thought of being able to, the opportunity to do that,
right?
It kills me to think of that, because I do believe the world, for all its faults, and there are plenty of faults, there's many faults in this country that, I'm from, and it breaks my heart to kind of see what's going on right now, because this isn't something that just popped out of nowhere. It's always been, and I can't remember who said it, but it just happens to be being recorded right now, and that's a shame. And this is something that should have been handled a long time ago and gotten through. And yet it, for as many progresses that we made, we take a back step a lot. But again, I hate getting too political, because that's not what the show's about. The show's about just people being people, and be who you are and where you're from. But the world, what I'm getting at is the world is a beautiful place. I learned that a long time ago. I learned that I may look about as white boy gets, but I've been to places that were more accepting as my passport country for who I was, right? And so I want that to be a mainstay. I want that to be what this world's about. And it kills me not to be able to go and travel places and see people for who they are and whatnot. So the world's a beautiful place. And the reason I ask you that deep question is because I don't know how to answer it, because I don't know. I mean, I look at my 8-year-old self. Would I have felt safe in today's world? Would I have felt like it's okay to hop on an airplane and go to a different culture and talk my own, I don't have kids yet, but it's like talk my own kids into being like, don't worry about it, it's fine. Talk my wife into being like, hey, we even actually, it's funny I say that, because my wife and I talked about this earlier. Really? Would she feel safe? Yeah. Would she feel safe if I said, hey, I just got a job offer in name the country? And her answer, my wife's pretty damn cool. I mean, she was like, yeah, but let's talk about where we'd be going. Like it's, and she's totally right in saying that, because the world isn't as safe as it should be, and that's sad for me. 30 plus years ago, things were pretty mellow, and now they're not. So that's why I brought that up. So
yeah, and to add to that, it's difficult too when your sense of safety is far away. I talk about that because I miss my dad, I miss my brother, I miss my auntie. And for a lot of so my friends are also TCKs, most of them, and a lot of them are in long distance relationships. Not seeing your boyfriend for 6 months, or you don't know how long you will see them, or maybe even someone who can't attend the funeral of their loved ones because of this. And so Definitely, it's not safe and it hurts, and there's no sugarcoating it. We can only go through this together.
Right.
Mm.
You know, we all bleed red, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
let's talk about, on that note then, let's talk about coping skills. I mean, you come from a psychology background and counseling background. So what kind of coping advice would you give to those struggling right now through these troubled times?
Imagine you're a spider and build a network of support as your spider web. You can't be a lone spider right now. You need humans. Even if you're independent, you need humans. So number one advice, build your web. At least 3 to 4 people you can reach out to. Because when you're at home all the time, you lose your mind. You lose your mind. We're not wired for this. So people, number one. There's number one, people. Number two, art. So I was raised to be an artist. Music was at home. Art was at home. And so art, definitely release all your sadness. All great art were born from sadness, most of them. So use this. You don't have to be productive all the time, but of course, this is a way for you to release. So art, writing, definitely. Number three,
That's
yeah.
yeah. That's me. I'm a writer, so I get that. So,
You're
yeah.
an artist. You're right. You put thoughts into paper so you can see it. That's so important because when all your thoughts are here, it's like a vase that's overflowing, and the pen is the straw to like an ocean. So it's like you release everything through writing. And number three, do your best to stay afloat and not self-sabotage diet-wise. I know this is so not philosophical, cool, self-help, but really, diet, maintain it. Uh, what we eat is what we feel. So maybe I know it's so easy now to binge on 20 donuts. I know because we're so stressed. or like 50 pizzas, right? But when we take care of, or even alcohol, oh my goodness, Ben, I'm gonna share with you this. The statistics for alcohol consumption has increased like twofold.
Yeah.
Please take care of our bodies if we can. Take care of your body. That's the best way now you can cope, is to prevent bad things from happening. So watch alcohol consumption, watch food. Yeah. Nothing cool, but it's real.
No, it's good advice. Maybe throw in exercise in there too. That's one thing
That's
that's kept me sane. So yeah.
everything, movement.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And then if you are I think a lot of parents are struggling right now to protect their kids from seeing what's going on and yet wanting to be honest with them at the same time. I know there are some parents watching this right now. So what explaining the issues that are going on in the world, what's your advice to parents right now in terms of how they communicate to their kids?
I feel like this can be a collab question. You can answer it as an educator too. Yeah, and I'll answer it too. But on my end, from a psychology background, I would say number one, minimize anxiety at home, but speak the truth. So how does that work? Be mindful of the noise at home. Is the music playing in the background, CNN or Fox? Or if it's the glorious president talking, the 24 hours, our kids hear it. Our kids hear it. They hear the bomb. They know chaos. It's like animals. You know how cats and dogs are so intuitive? Our kids are like that. They're balls of intuition. Protect that. So number one, regulate the sounds at home. You can watch the news, but minimize it in front of them. Number two, the best way you can take care of your kids right now is to take care of yourself. No better way. When mommy and daddy is anxious, baby sees it. Baby copies. Baby cries. So when mommy and daddy can stay calm, baby stays calm. And so be calm yourself. Do your best. I know it's scary, but be the leader. This is your time. And number three, be honest with them. Say, there's a quote by this: when you see chaos, look for the people who are helping. If we can emphasize that to our kids, there are bad guys, but you can be the good guy. Yeah. How
Yeah,
about
I totally agree with that. It's funny because we talked about this earlier, but
you?
kids aren't dumb. I don't care what age they're at. They're a lot more, they pay attention. They're sponges. Like you just said it, and it was perfectly said that they're going to basically copy every little emotion or fear or whatever that they feel present. I mean, they're intuitive. They get what's going on, but they can't necessarily process it, right? They understand there's an issue, but they can't process it. So they're going to look for that leader, quote unquote, their parents or their teachers or whatnot, or adults, to see how that they're acting and interpreting things and presenting calmness themselves. And so I think you're right on the head. Whether it's a teaching thing or a psychology thing or a parent thing, it's be real. I'm not going to say sugarcoat it. Kids aren't dumb, and they're going to figure out the truth no matter what. That's why I'm always, So definitely be honest and don't try to hide what's going on in the world. But,
I,
but
I
be go ahead.
As educators, entrepreneurs, teachers, parents, the problem with being so strong all the time is you'll break down. You'll break down. You can't be strong for 50 students every single day while your family is like breaking down and crying. And so I would add to what I mentioned earlier is to take care of yourself, to have that web of support, as I mentioned. As a teacher, you're strong, but you need other teachers too. So it's time to bond together, so we don't break down in front of our kids.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily, maybe you can vouch for this better. You've got the psychology background, but I don't necessarily think it's a horrible thing if kids see you, the emotional side of that, right? They see you being emotional. They understand that you're frustrated too. I think there's a humanistic concept that it's healthy in a way to actually realize that, sometimes life isn't always easier. Sometimes life sucks, and sometimes adults don't have it figured out,
What you just said sparked a light in me, Ben.
Good.
I remember if I may share.
Absolutely.
My mother, so she struggled with 4th stage cancer. Now that's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and seeing that and how she responded to calamity, it made me a better and stronger person. So this is what she did. Mommy right now is struggling. Of course, we have to go through chemo and everything. And mommy's not giving up. Mommy is going to persevere. Mommy will persevere. And seeing her like that fight until her last breath inspired me, because I know that even though, COVID, wars, whatever will happen in the next few months or years, if I have the perseverance of mommy, I can get through it. And so as parents, educators, if we can use this time to show strength, our kids will see it. And they will know that, let's say, teacher Ben, was strong. He was strong. He was my Superman. And I'm going to be Superman too, like teacher Ben. And yeah, this is the time for that.
No, I appreciate you sharing that story. And you're right. It's just interesting times. That's why I like to hear different people's perspectives on this, especially people with the psychology background that you have, because I think, it's needed right now. People are scared. It's a crazy time. It's not just, it'd be one thing if it was just one thing, right? But it's not. There's a lot going on right now.
Especially in America, may I say. As a TCK in America, a Taiwanese here, I'm horribly surprised. Like in Taiwan, the news is literally about a cat escaping a building. It's like that. It's not rioters like looting. And so that is a culture shock for me. But anyway.
Well, my hope is someone who, has an American passport and lives here and this is home right now. My hope is that we get back to that as being our news one of these days instead of what's going on now. That's not to take away from the reasons things are happening, in this country right now. It's sad and it's wrong, and it's, equality is just, we shouldn't even be talking about this, right? It should just be what, it doesn't matter skin tone, it's people are people and humans are humans and we all bleed red. So there, I went off. I told myself I wasn't going to get political, but
about racism.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Something about that since we're on that. Just a quick bit.
Yeah.
racism is rooted in neuroscience. This is the science part of it. Our brains are wired to repel difference. And we can't deny, we can't be like everyone looks like SpongeBob. That's not reality, right? Everyone has a different look. And so it's not just about color, it's just look. And so our brains are wired for racism. And the beautiful thing is we're also human, so we can combat the primitive side of the brain. And that's why this is such a beautiful time. Yeah.
There's so much humanistic potential that I think that the good that can come out of this, I hope does. And yet it's very frustrating times. I mean, I've never thought of myself as white privilege, and yet I've had to kind of look in the mirror. You know, I don't see it, but it's there simply because of who I am. So
and disappointing too, right?
Horribly disappointing. Yeah, because it's an embarrassment right now, and it's an embarrassment in a sense that in 2020 we shouldn't still be having this conversation. It's my take. I mean, I don't look at myself as any better or any worse. We've talked about this before we went on. I was raised to shake the hand of the janitor just as much as the CEO of a company. You know, I'm not perfect, and I want to make sure that gets. I'm not trying to sit here on a pedestal and say I'm perfect, because I'm human too, and we all have our issues. But it's very hard for me to watch what's going on, and I'm a completely white guy. You know, I've said that totally. You know, and I don't know what it's like to be African American in this country, even though I grew up in a minority myself. But I just hope we can figure this out and figure it out pretty damn quick, because it's not okay what's going on. You know, it's not okay. So that's my 2 cents.
Your value system, right?
Not zero part of who I am.
Just repels. Me too. It's horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to other countries. I've lived in other countries, and maybe this is going to sound incredibly egotistical, and I don't mean it that way, but I feel like the second I stepped off the plane, even as a kid in Hong Kong and Taiwan, the second I stopped off the plane or walked off the plane, my difference, my skin tone, my cultural background was actually celebrated. I never felt, I never felt, even to this day, I've never felt like anything about me walking into someone else's country was anti. And it's hard for me to sit here in a country that I love, a country that is mine. It's my home. I mean, this is my passport country, even though I'm global. We talked about this, global citizen, but it kills me to think that it's 2020 and we're still talking about this in the United States. You know, it's
why, like, international conversations, cross-cultural psychology, everything we're saying right now, multiculturalism needs to be taught in schools.
Yeah.
It needs to be part of the curriculum. It needs. I'm just so like, we need to teach kids these things. Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. We could have a whole different podcast or you know, webcast on this, but it's hard for me. I get emotional too. You know, it's just because this is who I'm proud to be American. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. There's got to be a different approach. There's got to be a way to figure this out. I mean, it's 2020. We're not talking like it's not. Come on, right? It's just I get emotional. I get pissed. So
I know this is your trigger point, and it's also your calling. I do believe that what triggers you the most is your calling.
Yeah. And I've told myself I wasn't going to get political, but I'm glad you brought it up. So that's good. So.
Everything is political.
I know, but it's not even about this. Just be human. People, I mean, come on, let's just be human to each other. We all want the same things. We all want safety. We all want love. We all want understanding, and we all, you know, right? So
I understand.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's that. Let's move on. We're about done. And the fun part of this, being able to do this, is I get to kind of ask some personal questions and ones that are completely have nothing to do with politics or nothing to do with TCK stuff. It's just more about getting to know my guest. And I used to conclude these, and I'm still going to, with a certain question if you've watched the show. But one thing I added last week to my brother, and I think it's going to be a staple to this. What is something, I mean, I don't know you that well. I'm getting to know you pretty well, but what is something that people might not know necessarily about you that you're open to sharing? Is there anything specifically that, you know?
There's a lot. Okay, so number one is I am shy. I know it's not.
You're what?
I am shy.
Shy. Me too. Nobody believes that, but I truly am. Go
Nobody
ahead.
believes that, right? Nobody.
Yeah.
Because we present ourselves in such an extroverted. I think it's because it's the education and speaker part. We present ourselves like, but not a lot of people know I'm shy, and it takes time for me to warm up. Takes time. That's one thing. And then number two is I'm a coffee holic.
What's your poison? What do you drink usually? What type?
Everything from the pretentious, drip coffee, not pretentious, I love them so much, to the 3-in-1 coffee cost of Indonesia. I love coffee because so that's one thing. Oh, hi Don.
Don, I went to school with Don at Taipei Meiko Trisha.
Nice to meet you.
He's a good guy. So
and what else?
What else? Yeah.
I used to be in theater arts.
Really?
And okay, this one. My childhood dream, aside from being an entrepreneur and psychologist, is to be a magician.
Wow. Yeah. Tell me why. Like, where did that come from?
I used to perform magic in school, but it never happened because my grandpa was like, "You're going to die in the streets." So, Chinese.
That's awesome.
I love magic. Yeah. I love David Copperfield, Liu Chen. I grew up with magician books. I love it.
That's awesome. Wow, I never would have guessed that either. So that's exactly why I wanted to ask that question. That's awesome. Well, listen, we actually have come to the last question. And this is one, I don't know if you're a drinker or not. I usually just propose this as a beer question. I'm a beer guy. So, but even if you're not, if there's anyone alive or no longer with us that you could sit down and just have one more conversation with, or one more deep, let it all out. There's no hold back. It's just between you and that person. Who would that person be and why?
First of all, I drink too. I like wine.
Good. Okay, good. I never know, so I just want to make sure. So it's all good.
Beer. Okay.
Peugeot. David.
Oh.
Wait.
There's so many, but all right. Can I name two?
Absolutely. You can say whoever you want.
Many people know her. Her name is Simone de Beauvoir. Yeah, she's a French philosopher. She's my biggest inspiration. I would love to meet her. She is a thinker during a time when females can't think. Wow. That's why I want to have dinner with her, because sometimes I lack courage. Sometimes I'm afraid. And Simone, I read her biography. She just kept going. She was fearless as a woman. Yeah, while being feminine, right? She had her love partner start. So that's one person. The second person, Confucius.
Wow. Yeah,
I want to know why he created filial piety. I want to know why he created that system where children has to obey their parents forever. That disturbs me, to be honest. This is not Taiwanese at all. This is what disturbs me. Because a lot of kids are trapped at home based on what Confucius taught.
That's great. I didn't see that coming. I was curious about that. So that's good. So I thought you were going to say, anybody, family or whatnot, but that's good. That's why I like that question, because I always get kind of surprised by the answer. So, well, listen, this has been a treat. You and I could probably, we could probably talk forever, and we'll definitely have to have you back on. Hopefully when we have you back on, the world's a little bit calmer and we don't have to get so deep, but I respect you. I love what you're doing on your end. People need more people like you right now, especially right now. So not only from the TCK standpoint, from just a humanistic standpoint. So I do appreciate what you're doing in the psychology of things and trying to heal people and let them, mental health is so important right now. And I think that's something that's so overlooked and underlooked, and however you want to look at it. But just, from a human standpoint, I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you. Is there anything else you want to, before we kind of log off here, is there anything else you want to say to anybody watching or people just in general in the world today? So
Ride the wave. Don't drown. Ride it. And number 2, if you have YouTube, please follow us on Generation Zen Kids YouTube. We're not officially launched yet. Those are just a few of my close friends, but a lot of psychology videos if you're interested. We teach you how to cope with uncertainty in conversations like this. Yeah, that's it.
When do you guys launch?
September. So we're doing soft launches right now with trial batches. So we're excited for that, for the official one.
No, we'll have to have you back on once you guys have launched, and then you can brag about that.
And your book too.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I'm trying to get that finished. You're writing a book. You're just about done with it. What's the name of it?
Yeah, I'll share it.
Yeah.
So it's Psychology of Third Culture Kids. So we talk about there's a lot here, but we talk about conversations like loneliness, anxiety, how do you date when you're afraid of committing, and different topics that people who are living transient lifestyles, or at least will be able to relate to, like nomads, TCKs, expats.
Yeah. And I think I'm a small pinch of that book, right?
Yes. So tiny bit, I interviewed him.
Good.
His story is so fascinating for me because he is my opposite, America to Taiwan. I can't imagine how that is. So yeah, he will be on it. So I'm excited.
No, that's awesome. And I enjoyed it. I didn't forget. I guess I forgot to mention that's how you and I kind of connected, is that you did interview me in February. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely let me know when that comes out too. And we'll have you on for that as well. So, but listen, you really are a treat to have on here. And I respect you wholeheartedly and appreciate what you're doing, not just for TCKs, but for the world, the human species in general. So just keep doing what you're doing. And let's check in and have you back on pretty soon, if that's okay with you. So,
of course, anytime.
Great. No, I appreciate that. And those of you that are watching, thank you again for watching. I don't know where you're watching or if you're watching this on a replay, but as Cristine said, please, her information in terms of her YouTube site is on, I believe my information, I programmed that in, but also the BenThere YouTube is up in the live, and make sure you subscribe to that. Make sure you subscribe to both. But if you can't or didn't watch this live, make sure you go to BenThere.org and make sure you subscribe to that too. That's where I do a lot of my writing, which I've kind of slacked on lately. I need to get back into that. Most of it's been these videos that have been on lately, but I'm planning on doing some more writing. Nevertheless, check it out. Share your experiences. We'd love to hear from you either way, whether it's on this platform or whether it's responding to anything I've written. Just make sure you're subscribing and chiming in. I love to hear, obviously, different experiences of those that grew up overseas, but just the human side of things too. I love to hear from people in general. So having said that, until we do this again, be safe, everybody. Let's just work on being better every day. I think that's half the battle right there. Just work on being better, myself included. So Cristine, go ahead. What were you?
In the horror, as you said.
Right, exactly. So just Cristine, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. We're going to do this again because I once your book is launched and once your work site is launched, let's get you back on and we can talk about other things. Hopefully it's a lot more calm of a world when we do. But thank you for doing this. I truly respect you. I gotta plug the music again. So hold on one second. There we go. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
I'm so high tech here, right? So high tech. But I do want to give props to my buddy Roman that I grew up with. This is his song. This is one of his many songs. It's kind of become a theme to the show. But again, until next time, until we do this again, hopefully next week, everybody be safe. Just be respectful. Let's get along. Okay. Cristine, thank you very much. Bye, Jen.
Bye,
Jen. Bye, Jen. Okay. Until next. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. Until next time, everybody. Thanks for watching BenThere, and we will see you hopefully next week. Take care. Bye-bye.